Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. Let's get started. So, I've organized for us to do a happy hump day flow. We're going to work through some heat building poses. We're going to start off with a little bit of a breathing exercise and then a little bit of movement. And we will slowly work towards doing some deep twists and some challenging standing twists like a reverse trikonasana. Depending on how we go, we might even try a reverse Ardha Chandrasana and some back bending. So when you're ready, meet me on the mat, and I'm going to be using a block today just for that little extra bit of support. You don't have to use a block. If you don't have one, you can also use a water bottle. I realize this isn't a water bottle, but if you've got a water bottle, that will be enough for you to just sort of place on the ground and use for your hand. So feel free to do that if you want to. And any comments, anything that you need, feel free to pop them in. I am going to obviously be all the way over there, so I might not see it, but I will try to get to any questions or anything after the class as well. So whenever you're ready, if you're like me and you've got your slippers on, feel free to keep them on until you feel a little bit warmer. And taking your time, just start to find a comfortable seat on your mat. And so your comfortable seat might not look exactly like mine. It might be legs folded back behind you. Maybe you're taking a little bit more of a Japanese seat where the heels land on the outside of the hips, toes point back behind you. And give yourself a few moments to settle into this place here on your mat, here in your home. And in the first few moments of my practice, I always sort of let the body find these very gentle motions and sways. Almost as if my body is slowly discovering that center space. My spine sort of explores all the boundaries, this circumference, this circle. And then as it traces its boundary, it starts to come back to center. And then create this conscious intention to soften down through the center of your eyebrows and loosen the skin around your cheeks. And become mindful of the inward and outward moving breath. There's no need to make changes to it just yet. Just become aware of how it's moving first thing in the morning. The beautiful thing about yoga is that we really can do it anywhere, anytime. But of course, the senses are processing everything that is different about this moment. Perhaps you have different sounds around you at home. Perhaps you are doing it outside and you can hear the beautiful birds or animals around your home. And so just start to nestle yourself into this present moment. Instead of trying to remove yourself from the saturation of life, from the world, just let yourself fall into it. Let it be a part of this moment. And we'll take 5 collective breaths together just to bring us into the depth and the pace of your practice this morning. So wherever you are in the cycle of breath, begin to exhale all the way out, emptying the body completely, and pause at the base of your breath. And then breathing in through your nose, inhale for 2, 3, spine lengthens, 4, crown of the head is tall. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, body widens. 3, it lengthens. 4, you feel proud and strong. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, body draws in. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, soften your shoulders. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, loosen the face. 3, 4, let this moment be easy. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Last one here. Inhale, 2, soften the belly. 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Take a deep breath here on your own, keeping the pace the same. And then on the next inhale, reach the arms up towards the sky. Urdhva Hastasana with the arms. Exhale, draw the prayer down through center, Samasthiti. Thumbs connect to the heart space, bow your head towards your hands. If there's an intention that accompanies your practice this morning, whatever it is that brought you to the mat, whatever it is you need to cultivate from within, become aware of that now. And then taking your time, you can gently flutter open your eyes, finding a soft gaze forward, and take your time to climb into a wide-legged child's pose. And so softening all the way down onto your mat, you might like to take the knees as wide as your mat, big toes touch behind you. You start to sink all the way down to the earth, and keep your child's pose really active this morning. So instead of relaxing into the shoulders and relaxing the elbows down like we normally do, I'm going to get you to keep your arms really active. So come up onto your fingertips. This is what I like to call my spidey hands. And my palm, the center of my palm is lifted. And dropping the forehead all the way down so that you start to feel this really deep stretch through the scapula, through the outer wrapping of the shoulders. The front of the heart glides down. And of course the puppy wants to come and say hello. Hello, darling. Deep inhale, pull back through the tailbone. And exhale, let the heart free flow forward. Taking one more breath in. And out. And then on the next inhale, start to rise to a tabletop, bringing the knees underneath your hip bones. And as you exhale, allow everything to align underneath your joints. So your wrists land underneath your shoulders. The knees land underneath your hips. We'll take 3 rounds of cat-cow. As you inhale, tilt the tailbone to the sky. Draw the heart through the gate of the arms and gaze forward as the shoulders suck back. And then exhale, round up and in. Front body fuses to back body as the chin tucks into chest. Inhale, tailbone lifts, drop your belly and start to lift up through the front of the heart space so you have a smiley face in the spine. Exhale, round, tailbone draws in, chin tucks into chest, firm downward pressure through the hands. One more inhale, lift the tailbone, lift the heart, shoulders draw back and down. Exhale, round it in. Inhale, come back to a neutral spine. And as you exhale, tuck your toes and lift your knees, move into your first downward facing dog. And it's okay if your first downward facing dog is a little bit short, especially coming straight from a tabletop. If this is your first downward facing dog of the day, find whatever motion really serves you. And so you might want to pedal out through the legs. And I always like to joke around in my class that when you pedal out your down dog, we're not here to be a part of the Tour de France. So you don't need to pedal really fast. You can actually just pedal really nice and slow, taking your time to send the breath down the legs towards the heels. And then once you've served that movement, find yourself in stillness, starting to spread your fingertips wide, live in the entire experience, and see if you can wrap the outer armpits back so that they're pointing back toward your toes. Soften the belly on the inhale. Find your sense of stability on the exhale. Taking one more breath. And then inhale, come high onto the toes, bend down into your knees and walk the feet to the top of the mat. Maybe you take one step, maybe you take a few. And as you climb to the top of the mat, take an inhale, halfway lift and lengthen, flatten through the spine, gaze down, not forward. Exhale, fold, Uttanasana, bend your knees, chin tucks into the chest. And if you can touch the floor, push the floor forward with your hands. As you inhale, halfway lift and lengthen, inner thighs wrap to the back of your mat. Exhale, fold, Uttanasana, soften the knees, let yourself fold in. One more inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Exhale, fold. Inhale, circle sweep the arms all the way to the sky, root to rise. Feel the roots growing out of your heels, the arms lengthen effortlessly towards the ceiling. Exhale, prayer drops down through center. Inhale, prayer rises. Keep those inner thighs circling back. And exhale, fold. Let the heart glide forward and see if you can resist the urge to press the weight into the heels. Inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Exhale, fold. Plant into your hands, bend into the knees, and step back to a plank. So if you're taking it easy in your yoga strength today, please drop down onto your knees and keep it a nice easy plank. But if you're building strength with me today, then stay in your high plank. And it's really important that your high plank isn't like this. It's not like a down dog where your hips are up really high, and it's not a half up dog where you've got your hips really low. You need to keep your hips in line with your shoulders. Think about drawing the front of your hip bones up towards your low ribs. Take a deep inhale, keep all of that action there, and lengthen the heart through the arms. So you're not dropping or releasing the core, you're just finding those two contraction points. Take one more deep inhale, maybe you're shaking, and that's okay, it's 9 a.m. And then on your next exhale, find an upward facing dog. So drop your hips towards the floor, don't drop your thighs, and start to lift up through the front of the heart as you inhale. So you're up on your toes, your kneecaps are up, your thighs are up, and the front side of the chest is open. And then exhale, chin to chest, roll back, downward facing dog. Use your core, not your low back. Take a big inhale in downward facing dog. And exhale. We're going to do that a few more times to build heat in the body. So as you inhale, come high onto the toes, start to ripple the spine forward like a wave. So tuck your tailbone, draw the chin in towards your chest, roll forward. And as you exhale, start to drop the hip bones down, upward facing dog. You inhale, the breath spreads across the chest, you pull the heads of the shoulders back, and you lift the lobes of the ears out of the shoulder head. Exhale, roll back, downward facing dog. Pause for the breath in. Breath out. Slow body, slow mind. We can still get strong while we move slow. Inhale, come high onto the toes, ripple the spine forward. Think about creating as much of a C shape with your body as you can. And then exhale, drop the front of the hip bones down, peel up through the front of the heart. You inhale, upward facing dog. Really think about the thighs lifting and stabilize through your heels. Exhale, roll back, downward facing dog. Inhale. And exhale. If at this point you need to take off your jumper, if you need to take off your slippers, then go for it now. On the next inhale, come high onto the toes. Drop your heels to the right so that the feet stagger side by side. So you'll actually be able to graze the left Achilles heel with the tips of your right toes. And then bend a little bit into the knees so you get that nice deep side stretch down the left waist. 3. Really firm down through your left palm and think about pressing your left armpit away from your left hip. 2. If this is too strong to bend into the knees, then just keep the legs straight. And 1. But go where the sensation feels good, where it feels mindful and juicy. Inhale, come up onto the toes, and we switch it straight to the other side. Drop the heels to the left, the feet stagger side by side. And then if you want that little bit extra, you bend a little into the knees. The tailbone is still lifting up high. You've still got that nice length in the spine, like your downward facing dog. 2. And 1. Breathe all the way down the gills through the right side. And then inhale, come up into your downward facing dog. And then exhale, start to walk the feet towards the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Lift up through the front of the heart so that the spine is like a table. And then exhale, fold, bend your knees. Start to sink the hips down towards your heels, preparing for Utkatasana. Inhale, fingertips graze the floor as you reach forward and up. Keep the knees bent. And then as you exhale, settle the tailbone towards your heels as if you're trying to sit on an invisible chair. And notice if you're hiking up through the shoulders. So are you sort of hunching? Can you bring a little bit more space between your ears and your shoulders? 1 more breath. Firm the outer thighs. Think about wrapping the bum underneath you on purpose so that you're holding yourself up. And then exhale, prayer twist. Take your right elbow across your left knee and gaze down at your big toe. Point your top elbow to the sky. Inhale. Pull the heart through your arms like you do with your cat-cow. And then exhale, press into the top hand. Rotate the heart towards your prayer. For 3, I want you to sink the tailbone down a little bit more towards the heels. So none of this sort of Uttanasana twist. We want the booty really low. We want the inner thighs strong. 2, notice where you're putting most of your weight in your feet. Can you find balance? Can you find a spread of distribution? 1. And then nice and controlled. Inhale, can you step that right leg back to a twisting lunge? Nice job. And again, if you're taking it easy today, you can drop the back knee to the floor. But I personally find that I have more space in my twist when I keep the back leg up. So start to contract that right hip bone to the front heel so that you're closing off the inner gate of the thighs. 1 more breath. Maybe you're starting to pull the belly up off your thighs and you twist to gaze up towards the ceiling. And with a sense of grace, we're going to open out to a warrior 2. Inhale, windmill the arms, drop the back heel to the floor. Exhale, settle deep into the front leg. And if you're anything like me, you may have gotten a few pops and cracks in that front leg. And also, if you're like me, you might be starting to feel really warm. And I'm actually going to take my long sleeve shirt off. So you've got another 3 breaths here. So if you need to use this time to remove your nice warm sleeping clothes, then please feel free to do so. You've got 1 more breath. Start to anchor down into your front heel rather than the ball of the foot. So you can actually sink a little bit more into the bottom of the hip bone and the hamstring can come up and in. Take an inhale, offer that front palm forward, lean your front rib cage forward, and then exhale, reverse the warrior. Take the back hand to the back leg, bend into your front elbow and pull the elbow away from the front of your mat. Inhale, warrior 2. Exhale, side angle pose. Take your front elbow to your front knee and reach your top arm towards the sky.
And resist the urge to kick the bum all the way out and lean on your front elbow. You've just switched off all the strength that you need in your legs by doing that. So I want you to keep your tailbone and your sacrum sort of tucking in underneath you, which challenges your quad. And then think about reaching that top shoulder blade away from your spine. 1. With power in the legs, inhale, windmill the arms. Exhale, reverse, bend into the elbow, pull the elbow away from the front of the mat rather than thinking about reaching to the back of the mat. Inhale, warrior 2. Exhale, trikonasana. Lengthen into the front leg, windmill that hand down. Welcome to grab your block or your water bottle, and you can land the hand on something a little bit higher than the floor. Top arm reaches towards the sky. We pause for 3. And I'm going to edit this trikonasana a little bit. Instead of trying to live in between 2 panes of glass, I want you to think about rolling that top hip bone down. So think about what you would do if you were going to bow over your front leg like a pyramid pose. You can even take your right hand to your low back. See if your sacrum feels flat. And then keep your sacrum flat, but start to turn your rib cage towards the side. Now we're taking nice, strong, deep twists. 1. Beautiful, bend into the front knee. Inhale, warrior 2. Exhale, reverse the warrior, bend the elbow. Pull the elbow away. Inhale, warrior 2. And then exhale, windmill the hand down, keep your front knee bent, and we're going to practice Ardha Chandrasana. Now you can walk your bottom block a little bit further forward in front of your feet, and a trick for me that helps me stay stable is I heel toe the back foot in a little bit. Welcome to take the top hand to the top hip. Inhale, hover the back leg up, parallel to floor. Now remember, it is first thing in the morning, and it's also hump day. So if you're feeling a little bit wobbly, that's totally fine. Let the wobbles be there. That's your body working itself out. Wobbles are your body's way of feeling into the boundaries. But find a dristi, whether the dristi is on the floor or maybe it's off to the side. And keep gazing at that dristi as you connect with the strength drawing up your legs. So think about pulling energy up away from your foot. Flex into the hovering foot and think about rolling the hovering thigh open towards the ceiling. You've got 1 more breath. Lower belly draws in and up, and lengthen the crown of the head towards the front of your mat. And with this final little experiment, maybe you're coming up a little lighter on the block, little to no weight in front hand. Take a big inhale. Exhale, drop the foot to the back of the mat. Leave the block where it is. Inhale, warrior 2, your arms. And then exhale, take the hands to the hips and turn your toes to the right. So I know I'm facing away from you guys, but hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. Gently turn your toes inwards and push your heels outwards so you look a bit pigeon-toed. And then hands on hips, inhale, lift up through your heart space, chin parallel to floor, and then exhale, hinge from your hip crease and bow down into your Prasarita Padottanasana. Fingertips might land on your block, maybe they land on the floor. You take another inhale, lengthen the heart through the gate of the arms. Exhale, walk the hands back in between your feet. And the biggest thing that I notice people do in this pose is they get this really strong intention that they want to get their head to the floor and they round into their back. And if I show you what that looks like sideways, a lot of people do this and they sort of shrink the space between their shoulders and their ears and they round into their thoracic spine. But can you be here for these next couple of breaths and can you think about pressing your outer thighs away and think about finding a cow spine rather than a cat spine. So how would that change your pose? Just finding that sort of little bit more arching in the spine. Let's take 1 more breath. If you've got your hands in between your feet, draw your elbows in. Maybe the crown of the head comes to the floor. Beautiful job. Inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. And then exhale, spin to the back of the mat and turn your back toes towards the back of the mat. Pyramid pose, inhale, lift and lengthen. You might like to free the back heel if you want some extra space. Exhale, bow over the right thigh. And in your pyramid pose, one of my favorite things to do here is to sort of workshop the sensations in the hips. So as you inhale, can you bring all the weight towards the front foot? So push into your back toes, transfer all the weight to that front foot. And then exhale, move the weight towards the back foot. Push the back heel down. Can you feel how your left hip sort of spills back? Inhale, move the weight towards the front foot. Close off that left hip. Zip the left hip towards the front heel. And then exhale, push into the back foot. See how that front left hip pulls open. So we want to be closed. Inhale, pull the weight towards the center of your mat. So you've got balance between both feet. And think about zipping that left hip towards the front heel so the inner thighs are drawing in. If you can, find space all the way up your spine. It doesn't matter how far you fall down. You can probably see that I'm up quite high here, but because I'm creating stability through the front leg, it means that when I fold forward, oh my gosh, it gets really deep into my hamstring rather than me just sort of hinging through my back. Take one more breath wherever you are. And then inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Exhale, bend into the front knee and drop the back knee towards the floor. Untuck the back toes. Inhale, right arm reaches to sky. Nice little lunging twist. And if it's ever too much to have that arm in the air, you can always place it on the hip. I always say that to my yogis on Saturday. All of this, all the arms up, that's just sort of expression. It actually doesn't really have a lot to do with the core foundation of the pose. The foundation of the pose is your ability to actually twist. So if you have your hand on your hip, think about pulling the outer left lung to the inner thigh. Take one more breath. Beautiful. And then inhale where you are. And then exhale, frame into the front foot, lengthen the front leg and take a half splits. As you inhale, halfway lift, look past your toes, and then exhale, fold over the leg, drawing the outer right hip back. So instead of actually sort of sinking and cinching through the right waist, I want you to think about pulling the right hip back and elongating the right waist as much as you possibly can. For 2. It's okay if there's a little bit of a bend in that front knee. It really doesn't matter. But if you're feeling this really yucky in the back of the knee or at the very top of your hamstring attachment, which is up underneath your butt, then we need to make an edit for your pose. You need to bend into your knee a little bit so that you can access the hamstring rather than the attachments either side of the hamstring. Take one more breath. And then inhale, let's halfway lift, lengthen. Exhale, bend into the knee. And then inhale, step back to plank. And then exhale, find your chaturanga. Maybe the knees go down, you bend into your elbows, you come down halfway. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Find what works for your spine. Shoulders remain down, ears lift up. Exhale, roll back, downward facing dog. Deep inhale. And deep exhale. Just notice how the body feels here. 2. Firm down through your outer heels and allow the inner thighs to rotate towards the wall behind you. 1. And then inhale, come high onto the toes. Drop down onto your knees. And then keep your toes tucked. Walk your hands back so that you come up to stand on your knees. And because we're facing backwards on the mat, grab your block and just place it to the other edge of your mat, because we're going to do that whole sequence facing this way and then eventually turn around. But as you come up to stand on your knees, we're going to take a little bit of a modified camel pose. And then on the second round, I'll give you the option to move into something deeper. Those of you that were in class with me on Saturday, we did practice this. So this is your opportunity to practice it again. And so making sure that your knees are hip distance apart, which is about 2/5 away from each other. Toes are tucked. And as you inhale, reach the arms up towards the sky. And as you exhale, circle your right hand back and let it fall to the calf or maybe to the heel. And so you're not leaning back on it really strong. You're just sort of holding on to it. And then I want you to inhale. Think about lengthening through your left side. So lift up through the left armpit, lift up through your left fingers as if you're trying to grab something on the ceiling. And press the front of the left rib cage forward. Find your breath, be here for 3. And so even though we're slightly back bending, I really want you to think about all the length you can create through the left. 2. Side body is alive and strong. Gently squeeze up through your glutes so that you're protected. Lift the back of the sternum up. 1. And then inhale, chin moves toward your shoulder, and then you stabilize as you sweep the right arm up. And then we exhale, circle the left hand back. And so don't just jam your hips forward. Keep your hips in line with the knees and allow the spine to find the space rather than your hips needing to move forward in space. Then take an inhale, lengthen through the right waist, lift the lower right rib away from the hip bone so that that nice soft space of your waist is really nice and long. 3. If you can't breathe here, I need you to come back. I don't count because I'm breathing and talking. And then draw the inner heels in so that your legs are nice and stable. Don't let the heels fall out. Lift the back of the sternum up. 1. And then chin comes down towards the left shoulder. Stabilize through the belly. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, gently sit back on the heels. Prayer comes down through center. Now, if that was really strong through the low back, just take your breaths here. If you feel drawn to your restful child's pose, take your time to untuck the toes. Lower your body down to your thighs and let the forehead land on the earth. And so after back bending, I often take my time to roll down into a child's pose. My spine doesn't like to go from back bending to forward bending very quickly, so I climb down really nice and gently. And then I let the forehead soften to the earth. And then invite the breath all the way down through the low back. For 3. For 2. And 1. And then on the next inhale, start to rise towards your tabletop. And as you exhale, tuck the toes, lift the knees, downward facing dog. Be where you are 100% present in what you feel, present in even what you think. Start to find your personal alignment in your downward facing dog. An alignment that makes you feel strong rather than an alignment that necessarily makes you feel flexible. Remember that the outer upper arms wrap back towards the toes. And we don't want to pull the shoulders too far back away from the ears. We actually want them quite stable. So instead, think about pushing nice and firm into your hands. Zip the front of the rib cage in. Take one more breath. And then on the next inhale, come high onto your toes. Ripple your spine forward. Come into your plank. Chin draws in towards the chest. And maybe you need to walk your hands forward. As you exhale, drop the front of the hip bones down. Upward facing dog. Inhale. Lift up through the heart. Gaze forward. Draw the inner heels in so you're strong. Exhale, roll back. Downward facing dog. If you're feeling that in the low back, I need you to be more aware of your core. So don't move so far that it pushes your body. Inhale, come high onto the toes, ripple forward towards your plank. Let it be an undulating wave. Exhale, front of the hip bones drop down. The inner thighs stay strong. And you lift up through the chest. Inhale, collarbone broadens. Exhale, roll back, chin to chest, belly to spine, downward facing dog. Deep inhale here. Deep exhale. You've got one more. Inhale, come high onto the toes, ripple forward. Exhale, drop the front of the hips. Stabilize the inner thighs. Inhale, lift up through the heart, collarbone draws wide. Exhale, roll back, downward facing dog. Inhale. And exhale. On the next inhale, come high onto your toes. Bend deep into the knees. Walk, step, or jump to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Exhale, fold. Sink the booty towards the heels. Inhale, Utkatasana. Fingertips draw all the way up towards the sky, but you keep that deep bend in the knees. Exhale, sink down into the sit bones. Wrap the outer thighs in, so firm the outer thighs so that you can feel your bum gather underneath you in this way that it sort of supports you and it stabilizes and strengthens into the legs. And if your legs are sitting here saying, I don't like being here, don't worry, me too. Notice where the weight is in your feet. Can you find this balance? Can you find a sense of evenness? Sthira Sukha. Balance between good and bad space, effort and ease. One more breath. And then inhale, create your prayer above your head. Exhale, left elbow crosses over the front knee. And then you cross the body as you inhale, lengthen the heart through your arms. Exhale, rotate the heart towards your prayer. And so the top elbow is pointing to sky, and notice if the hips have lifted up really high. I want you to keep the tailbone sinking down. I know the legs are feeling it here. 2. Belly isn't lazy on the thigh. It's actually drawing in and up. 1. Can you maybe even smile? With a sense of control, inhale, step the left foot back, high lunge. With your exhale, find that grounding through the feet. Recreate your twist. So the left lung is trying to pull through to that front thigh. 2. Lift up through your back thigh, lift up through your back knee. So none of this. No sinking down. 1. With a sense of ease and grace, inhale, warrior 2. Unravel the arms, drop the back heel, 45. And exhale, find the depth of your warrior 2. And again, you might get that nice juicy crack in that front hip. Deep inhale. And exhale. And so notice if you have a tendency to sort of fall into the negative speech of the pose, especially if the pose is hard, especially if the legs are tired. I purposely put a lot of poses together that make your body feel challenged. And so if your legs are feeling challenged, sorry, but not sorry. Anchor down through the front heel rather than the ball of the foot, and inhale, offer the front palm forward. Exhale, reverse the warrior, bend into your front elbow, pull the elbow away from the front of the mat rather than reaching to the back of the mat. Inhale, warrior 2. Exhale, side angle pose. Take your front elbow to the front knee and reach the top arm up towards the sky. Sliding that shoulder blade towards your spine, and the thumb points forward as if it's sort of pointing above the crown of your head. And the palm is facing off to the side of your mat. 2. Sink that right hip bone down towards the front heel a little bit more. Come deeper into the muscle. 1. Inhale, warrior 2. Resist the urge to lengthen that front leg. You've got it. Exhale, reverse. Bend the elbow. Pull the elbow back away from the front knee as the front knee presses to the front of the mat. Inhale, warrior 2. Woo. Exhale, lengthen the front leg, Trikonasana. Now at this point, you can grab your block. I have a little bit of a funky ankle on this side, so I really do need to use the block here. And I even shorten my stance quite a little bit. And then I'm gonna place that top hand on my hip just so that I can find the sensation through the spine that I want. We've got heaps of breaths, so there's really no need to rush. And remember what I said on the other side. I want you to roll this top hip down towards the floor as if you're squaring off your hips. And so when you bring your hands to your body, your mind becomes so much more aware of those body parts. So if you use your left hand to locate your left hip bone, is the left hip bone pointing to the ground? Is the sacrum flat? Now that you've got that there, can you keep the sacrum flat and start to rotate the right lung towards the left side of your mat without rolling that left hip open? Deep twisting, 3. And if you've got this, you can maybe take that top arm to sky, slide the shoulder blade towards your spine. This should feel a little bit tighter and more restrictive through the thoracic spine because we're keeping the hips orientated one way, but we're trying to roll the upper arm open. 1. Beautiful. Inhale, gaze down. Exhale, take the top hand to your hip. Bend into that bottom knee. We take Ardha Chandrasana. Take the block forward, or maybe your hand lands forward, and then you hover the back leg parallel to the floor. And again, find the stability rather than rushing. So I move very slowly into each of my poses because I want to move with this sense of consciousness rather than this sort of desperate need to copy. Even copying me, you don't have to copy me, just find your own pathway into the pose. For 3, I want you to be here, firm the outer right thigh, but then rotate the hovering thigh towards the ceiling, flexing through that back foot. And then with the belly drawing in, can you create a little bit more length through the right waist without losing your breath? 1, maybe you feel safe enough to take that top arm to sky. And then with this sense of balance and softness, can you drop that back foot to the floor? Inhale, windmill the arms, warrior 2. Exhale, take your hands to hips, spin the toes towards the side of the mat. Prasarita Padottanasana, you inhale, lengthen. Exhale, hinge from the hip bones and fold yourself in. Remember, you've got pigeon toe feet, so push your heels open. And again, if you could easily get your hands in between your feet and you've got that nice long straight spine, think about your cow spine and rock some weight towards the balls of your feet. I know you don't really want to because it feels like you're going to fall over, but you won't. Your thighs are really strong, and when you push weight towards the balls of your feet, your thighs immediately traction up to stop you from falling forward, and that's exactly what we want. We want the thighs drawing up as if you're trying to plug your thigh bones into your hip sockets. And then if you've got your hands in between your feet and your elbows are drawing in like chaturanga arms, maybe you're having a play with your tripod headstand. In which case, you've got strong hands pushing forward on your mat. You take an inhale, come up onto your toes. Firm down through the crown of the head, and maybe you slowly start to lift the feet. You've got 3 breaths wherever you are. Don't panic. If you're not doing your headstand, it's totally fine. This is just an option. 2. Maybe you're feeling a little bit unstable like me today. Stay with the breath. Belly on. 1. Lift the toes up towards the ceiling if they're hovering. And then very slowly start to lower the feet back down. Can you come back to your wide legs? Flex through your feet, use your core. Woo! And once the feet land, inhale, walk the hands back out in front. That was a bit of a cheeky one, we threw that in. Exhale, walk your hands to the left foot and spin the toes to the front of the mat. Pyramid pose. Inhale, all 10 toes point forward. So lift your back heel off the ground. Exhale, fold over the front thigh as you suck the outer left thigh back. So remember, we don't want to cinch up through the left waist. I want you to pull the outer left thigh back towards the back corner of your mat. Maybe you're even using your left hand to actually shove that hip back. I use my hands quite a lot in my practice because, and we call it the sort of, I think it's called the homunculus in your brain. It's actually where your brain is in touch with your physical body. And inside your brain, your hands are actually really, really big because that's where all your nerve endings are, or there's a lot more nerve endings there. So when you take your hand to your body part, the brain becomes very aware of it. So if you can hold your left hip back, but then inhale, pull the sternum forward, you'll feel that nice deep stretch in that front leg. Take one more long inhale. And exhale. Beautiful. And then inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Maybe you need to shimmy your back foot back. And exhale, drop the back knee, come down into a low lunge. Untuck the back toes, we take a twist. Inhale, lift the left arm up towards the sky, rotate towards the front knee. And remember that top hand can go to the hip. It doesn't have to reach to the sky. They're all external expressions. So for me in yoga, it's often about stability first, strength second, and flexibility and expression last. So if you actually have this deep rotation of the right rib cage towards the inner thigh, and it feels quite light and effortless that you can sort of just brush stroke that top arm towards the ceiling, then feel free to go there. But it's not a necessary part of the pose, especially if it brings more tension into the body. I need you to be able to breathe freedom and space into that limb. And then inhale, gaze down. Exhale, frame into the front foot, half splits. Rock the hips back, lengthen into the front leg. And then come up a little bit. Take an inhale to rise, create some space in the front side of the body. Push down through your back knee a little bit so that you're not jutting the right hip out. And then exhale, bow over the front leg. And remember what I said, if you're feeling it in the back of the knee or up in your hamstring attachment, let the ego go and please bend into the knee a little bit. Because it doesn't mean that you can't do a half splits. It means that you're actually manipulating the body so that you can get the stretch in the muscle group that we're trying to get. Imagine if you went to a physio and the physio's job was to strengthen or stretch one particular muscle group and instead they just stretched around it the whole time. You'd be pretty upset. You'd be feeling like you wasted your money and wasted your time. So why do you do that to yourself in your yoga practice? Just because you think that your leg's supposed to be straight. So take a bend, take an exploration, see if you can bring a little bit more sensation into the hamstring through your own practice, through your own breath. Taking one more. And then inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Exhale, bend into the knee. Frame into the front foot. Inhale to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Upward dog, the thighs are lifted. Exhale, downward facing dog. Take a long breath in. Long breath out. 2. And 1. And then inhale, come high onto the toes. Drop down onto the knees. Keep the toes tucked. And walk your hands back towards the kneecaps. Now I'm going to do this one on the side so that you guys can see. If you would like to repeat that sort of half camel pose that we did before, please feel free to repeat that, especially if you find that your back bends are a little bit sensitive, especially first thing in the morning, then just repeat. But I will give you the option to move a little bit deeper, but because you're at home and because I'm not there with you to check on your alignment, I need you to listen very carefully and I need you to be very mindful of how the spine feels. As we move a little bit deeper into this binding back bend, it's important that you don't sort of twist and collapse your spine. I want you to keep as much of the front body pointing forward as you can rather than twisting to the side. So keep the chest forward, keep the rib cage forward, and see if you can keep lifting up through the heart. You'll see what I mean as we work our way through it. So toes are tucked, knees are hip distance apart, and you've got a nice, strong, stable base through your thighs. So draw up through your thighs. Glutes might be a little bit active here just to help keep you stable. Take an inhale, reach the arms up towards the ceiling. And as you exhale, circle the left hand down towards the heel. Maybe you land the fingertips on the heel, maybe you grab onto it. And now turn your gaze forward, lift up through the front of the rib cage, and find your half camel pose. My dog might bark here. I can hear him grumbling over there, so hopefully he doesn't get too loud. Take a deep inhale, lift up through the front of the hip bone. Try not to press your hip bones forward. 3, oh, grumbles. 2, front of the thighs are strong and on. 1, now you can stay here, or you're going to lift the front of the heart space up, gaze towards the front of the mat. You can use your right hand crossing in front of your body for support, and you pull that left heel in towards your glute. Now, if you want to hold on to the foot with your right hand, you can cinch the toes in towards the inner elbow and point your left fingers to sky. Then you inhale, turn your rib cage forward, turn your gaze forward, lift the right arm up. You can stay here, strong through the legs, still need to be able to breathe down the spine. If you want to move deeper, you take your Gomukhasana, bend into your right elbow, and your fingertips bind. For 3, wherever you are, be there 100%. 2, let the breath guide you. 1, and then very gently let go. And then exhale, and gently tuck the toes and sit back on your heels. Oh, that's really strong. So let's just stay in a seated position for a moment. And I don't know about you, but if you came into that bind, for me, that brings a lot of action and a lot of strength into those big chunky muscles all the way down your spine. So give your body a moment to just process what's happening. And remember never to come so far into a yoga pose that you can't breathe, because that is when you will hurt yourself. That is when you will walk away from a yoga class thinking that yoga's damaged you, and that's absolutely not what we want. So if you can make these movements with a slow and mindful sense of control, then please by all means experiment in your practice. But if you start to lose control of your breath, that's your body saying, I'm not ready yet. It will be one day, but maybe just not now. Let's repeat on the other side. As you inhale, come up onto your knees. Remember the knees are hip distance apart. And resist the urge to jam your hips forward. I want you to keep them nice and strong, firm through your outer thighs. Tuck your toes. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, circle the right hand back. Find your heel. Maybe your block. And then turn your chest forward, turn your gaze forward. Inhale, lift the heart space up. You've got 3 breaths here. Notice if your right heel is falling open. Can you keep the big toe grounding down and the inner heel drawing into the center of your mat so that it's not collapsing out? 2, front of the chest is lifting straight upwards. Resist the urge to think of sort of back bending and just think about lengthening the front side of your body and lifting the front side of the body up. 1. If you want to move that a little bit deeper, you're going to draw the chin in towards your chest, and you're going to start to draw the right heel in towards the glute. Now this is perfectly fine pose to stay right here. If you would like a little bit more, gently tuck the hip bone in. So you can see I'm coming out of my back bend now just for stability. Cross your left hand in front of your body so that you've got a little bit of help. And then maybe you take those right toes in to the right elbow crease. And there's going to be one side that's not quite as friendly, and that's okay. Point your right fingertips up towards the sky. Turn your ribs to the front of the mat. Turn your gaze to the front of the mat. Lengthen up through the left arm. Maybe you're staying here. 3. How can you bring more stability, more strength into the legs, into the glutes, into the core, If you want to take your bind, you bend into the left elbow and you find your half Gomukhasana or your Gomukhasana. 3. Breathe into the back of the body. 2. Don't think about flexibility, think about strength. Where can you bring strength? 1. And then very gently, you inhale, lengthen, hold onto the foot, and then exhale, gently place the foot down back on the ground. Sink the hips back towards the heels. And then this time, we're gonna very gently crawl back down. So remember what I said before, the spine might not wanna go all the way down. So maybe you're happy to sit in your easy seat or rock pose. Maybe you would like to very gently bring the belly down onto the thighs. And for me, I like to stack my fists, place them underneath my forehead, or maybe grab a block and slide it underneath the head. Because it stops the head sort of bowing deeply past the shoulders and creating really big pressure changes in your blood pressure. It just feels a little bit more stable and spacious for me to stack my fists and rest my forehead down. And really, that's all we want in our yoga practice. We don't come to the mat to sort of be reminded of how incapable we are. We come here to develop space, to remind ourselves that we can actually live in the places within our body that have space, rather than trying to push past the spaciousness into confinedness. Take one more breath wherever you are. And then on the next inhale, slowly start to gaze forward. And we're just going to come all the way down onto the belly. So lengthen the legs out behind you. And then taking your left arm out to the side in line with your shoulder, so that the wrist actually looks like it's in line with the shoulder. I'm going to try and take my microphone off so you guys can still hear me. And using your right hand stacked underneath your right shoulder, see if you can inhale, lift up through your chest, and then exhale, move the outer left ribs to the center of your mat so that you're trying to separate your rib away from the armpit. And then exhale, roll onto the left side, maybe stacking the legs. Maybe for you want that nice juicy twist in the low spine. So keep your top leg straight, but scissor it back behind you. And let the foot sort of just graze against the floor. And for me, this is probably one of my favorite variations of this pose. A lot of people like to bend into the knees. And that's fine. That intensifies the stretch through my chest, to be really honest. But I love just keeping that top leg long and sort of just sliding it back, because it gets this really beautiful twisting sensation in the low back. And see if you can relax the low back. As you take another few deep breaths, move into all those spaces that feel like they need a bit of love, a little bit of kindness. Soften across the jaw. Let the face fall away. And then inhale, roll back to the belly. And then exhale, take the right arm out by your side. Check that the wrist is still in line with your shoulder. Palm faces down. And then pick up your right chest as you inhale. And exhale, move your sternum or your ribs to the center of your mat. Just so you've got that nice length of skin down the inner seam of the arm. Roll yourself to the right. Inhale. And exhale, maybe you're scissoring that top leg back behind you. Just moving into all the spaces that feel juicy and nice. Some of you like to bend the knees. Some of you like to take your bind. That top arm might tuck behind you. Sometimes in my classes, I purposely sort of don't over-instruct the variations because I really like you guys finding what works for you through a process of self-exploration rather than just following rules, you know? We're so used to following instruction and following rules and being told what to do. You do that in sort of every area of your life. So when you come to the mat, I want it to be more of your ability to follow your own cues, your own ideas, rather than just blindly doing what I tell you to. Take one more breath wherever you are. Move into the depth, whatever that depth is that you're exploring. And then when you're ready, you can slowly come back onto the belly. And then take your time to just roll onto your back. If you took all of your warm clothes off, then feel free to grab them and find a sense of warmth and comfort wherever you are. And if your back still feels a little bit sensitive from back bending, then maybe take your Shavasana today with the knees bent, feet on the floor. Or perhaps it feels really good to bring the soles of the feet together and open the knees out wide. Supta Baddha Konasana. Or maybe there's a few other poses that you feel that you need to do to finalize your practice. Maybe a happy baby pose, or maybe another twist. Whatever it is, just allow yourself to wind your way down into your final meditation. The eyes close down. We're going to place your hands maybe on your body, or maybe they broaden out by your sides. All the tissue around the backs of the lungs settles, falls heavy into the mat. Any facial expressions that you're still holding on to, just let them go. And fall back into the soundtrack of the world just existing around you. There's no need to identify the sounds, but just notice that they're there. Allow them to be in an unobstructed relationship with your eardrum. You don't wish to change anything, resist anything. You just let everything exist purely. Only drawing your mind back to the intention that accompanied your practice this morning. The resilience within you that brought you to the mat, regardless of the fact that your schedule, your life may have shifted or changed. That even in times when reality feels upside down, the mat is still here to support you. You are still here to support you. It's amazing how resilient your strength really is. You're more than welcome to remain here in your Shavasana, bathing in the vibration and the energy of your practice, your strength, your intention, for as long as you need or for as long as you wish. I thank you so much for sharing your home practice, your resilient strength, and your movement intention with me this morning. Namaste.